Here, the Trailblazers will kick off Summer League action Friday night in Las Vegas against the Suns. That tip-off from the Pavilion at 8 o'clock. You can watch it on ESPNU. The Mariners hold a half-game lead in the AL West. They're at the Marlins today. First pitch at 3:40. George Kirby will be on the bump for Seattle. Checking the Major League scoreboard. One game in action right now. Top of the ninth in San Francisco. The Blue Jays on top of the Giants by a score of 7-0. The NCAA has sent a letter of inquiry to the University of Cincinnati for the time that quarterback Brendan Sorsby was at the school and on the football team. And Justin Bieber has joined the World Cup final halftime show. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doings coming up next. The Godfather Dwight Jaynes will join the show at 4:20. And Jason Fellman is talking music and Hairfest coming up at 5.
Live from the Coors Light Studios, it's the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing. Coors Light, cold as the Rockies. Please drink responsibly.
Trying to link the play again using Lionel Messi. Deflection there on the way through. And can they line something up here? Argentina. Oh, it's gone in. It's 2-2. And who else? Lionel Messi, the savior for Argentina. Lautaro Martinez sending it over. 1-2, chopped towards the mound. To the left of it, Lugo fields it, throws off balance on one hop, and it gets away from Caglione into foul territory. Ewing comes around to score. Going to third is Bichette. All the way to second goes Danjan, and the ball, the infield gets away. Another wild throw, and another run is going to score. This is a little league home run of sorts.
2-0, swung on, drilled deep to center field. It is back, it is gone. Home run number 300 for Shohei Ohtani.
I like being number one on TikTok better, but I'm number one on the list.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing starts now.
The Godfather Dwight Jaynes will join us coming up at 4:20. The Godfather Dwight Jaynes will join us coming up at 4:20. I want to get the latest on what he knows with the efforts from the Trailblazers to come to agreement with the city and state to get the renovations for Moda Center done. So we'll talk with him. We'll also get his thoughts on the Ja Morant trade and what that means for the Blazers moving forward. Are they going to stand pat? Is this the roster that we will see entering training camp? So the Godfather will join us at 4:20. I also want to ask him, the Blazers will kick off their Summer League action coming up here on Friday down in Las Vegas. What does he look for at Summer League? I find the games to be a little bit choppy, not the most exciting thing, and it's really hard to gauge what you're seeing down there, especially with the big guys. I guess with young Hansen, what I'm looking for is just I want to see the process or his processing be at a higher level. Is he seeing things better? Is he moving better? Because it sure looked to me like he was kind of, plotting his way through his first year in the NBA and thinking a lot out there. And, in sports, especially at a high level, when you think too much, you're dead because you can't move freely and just react. So we'll get the Godfather's take on that. And then we're going to talk with Jason Fellman. He'll join me in studio coming up at 5, and we'll talk music. He's got Hairfest coming up, which is always a big bash every summer here in the Portland area. And I want to talk to him about the different bands that are coming out, the tribute bands. We'll talk music. We'll listen to some music and always have a good time talking about that with Jason Fellman. Now, if you would like to reach out and be a part of the Rip City Drive, you can do so at 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Big thanks to Michael Shacker and Brendan Slaughter for holding down the fort yesterday. I took the day off, and I guess you could call it a personal day, more of a golf day. I went out and played 18 holes in the morning, and then I ventured across town to the reserve and had a playing lesson with my coach, Nick Warren from Golf Tech out in Beaverton. And I would say of all the things that we do together, the playing lesson is what I find to be the most productive. Being on the course with different lies, different shots, different situations, being able to talk about those with him, and we go through the process. Like I enjoy every aspect of that. So we were out there for, about 2.5 hours or so, and it wasn't too crowded. It was very nice. And after we're done, we sit down, and he's got his iPad. He takes video, and then we walk through different shots, different things to look at, things that we're going to work on in future lessons, and we move on from there. There was one other student that was there, so it was the three of us out there on the course. And it's just fun. He will spend a hole with me, and then he'll move back to the other student. Then he comes back to me, and we just walk through it. I thought it was awesome. Really enjoy that process. And little things, that a coach will notice that sometimes I'm not even aware of. In golf, very simply put, when you set up at address, you want your feet to be parallel to the target line. And there was one shot where I had lined up, and I didn't even recognize that I was doing this, but my left foot, my lead foot, was farther out in front than my trail foot. And what happens is that makes it more difficult, or especially if you hit a draw, you'll close the face sometimes, but as you come through, it makes it more difficult for your normal, swing pattern, and you can push a lot of balls. And so I didn't even recognize that. So he was able to show that to me, and then gave me an exercise after we were done, just to kind of get my body back in sync in terms of, feet being in alignment, making sure you're parallel to the target line and stuff. It's things like that I really enjoy, but had a blast. And the weather, of course, right now is spectacular. It was beautiful all day yesterday. I played golf with a gentleman yesterday morning. I think said he was 72 years old. Really nice Asian guy. He is currently living in the Bay Area, but he's getting ready to make a transition and move up here to the Northwest. And so we were talking about different areas and different golf courses and so forth. But I respect him because about hole 12, he was wincing a little bit after each shot. And so we were talking, and I asked him, I said, what's going on? What's up with the wince? Are you in pain? And he's like, it's my shoulder. My right shoulder hurts, and I have to take painkillers before the round begins, but they always wear off, and usually by about hole 12 or hole 13, I start to feel the pain in the shoulder. And what happened is years ago he was T-boned, and the part of the door that got smashed came in and jammed his shoulder. And so I asked him, I said, is there anything that can be done to make it better? He said, probably not. But he goes, I'm a golfaholic. And so he's out there and does the best he can, but he swings a pretty good stick. So it was nice to play with him. But it was a good day, and now I'm happy to be back behind the microphone and talking sports with you. We'll talk music with Jason Feldman coming up at 5 o'clock. He'll be in studio, and then the Godfather Dwight Jaynes at 4:20. It's very important to keep everyone updated on what's going on with the negotiation process. The city of Portland's got to get this done. The council has got to come to terms with the situation and make sure that they, again, don't play defense, play offense, and make Tom Dundon feel wanted and embrace the fact that he's the owner of the Trailblazers. Whether you have to renovate when you have a true tenant in the Trailblazers or not, the city owns the building. They're going to have to get this done. So it's better to do it now when you got a viable tenant in the Trailblazers. So get it done. Let's get this thing done. Let's get that extended lease signed. And then we can once again carry on with basketball business and not have to worry about or wonder what this area might look like without the Trailblazers. That would be a disaster. But I want everyone to stay informed. And again, I've been asked this question multiple times. If you want to help, I've been asked, what can I do? Yeah, reach out to your local representatives. Reach out to the council. Reach out to your politicians and just express your desire for them to get a deal done, and let them know how important it is to you to have the Trailblazers in Rip City where they belong, and the value to you of getting that building renovated. It's not just for basketball games, but for all the other events that we're going to go to. So let your local representatives know. And again, I'm a pro sports guy, obviously, and I want the Trailblazers to remain here long term. But there are people who disagree with the idea of giving Tom Dundon money. So they reach out and express their concern. You can do the same. But we don't want the Blazers to go anywhere. That would be a disaster. And if the NBA leaves, we're never going to get it back. So it's important for them to get that deal done. So we'll get the latest from Dwight. And I still think the deal is going to get done, even with some of the rhetoric that's going around and some of the concern. I still think it's going to get done. It's never really been a major concern because I think in the end, you know, the money is there and the politicians know that they need the Trailblazers, just like we know, and they'll get the deal done. But until it's signed or until it's a signature on the dotted line or until there's a contract in place, there's always going to be concern. I remember my first boss, Nelson, would always tell me that. It doesn't mean anything if there's no contract. If it's not signed, if no one's signed anything, it doesn't mean nothing. So you got to get that deal done. Telephone number 503-248-0620. The other thing I'm wondering, too, with the Trailblazers, as time continues to tick on, you know, is that second deal, that follow-up deal to Ja Morant, is it going to happen? And I would say as each day passes, I think it's more and more unlikely that we're going to see another big deal come down. So what does that mean for the roster? And more importantly, how are the coaches, Mike Inori and his staff, how are they going to come up with the lineup and the different combinations that are going to work? Who's going to start? And then more importantly, who's going to finish? And what's the process of determining that? And when you have a group like the Blazers, which now, after the deal to bring in Morant, you're going to be smaller. They've got a center in Klingon. They've got the backup in Rob Will. You've got Tamani Kamara and Denny Avdia, but after that, you got a bunch of guards, whether you're talking about Dame, Ja, Scoot, Shaden, or Drew Holiday. You're a smaller team now, so what does that mean in terms of your style of play? I would think with Mike Inori's background and being more of an offensive guy, we're going to see the Blazers, you know, really looking to play fast and score. Play fast and score. That would be my guess. Very interesting, though, to consider, you know, how the Blazers are going to do that. And defensively, what's it going to take to be able to find the best combinations? The good thing is that you have guys on the roster like Drew Holiday and Tamani Kamara who can defend multiple positions, and that's very helpful. And your position, as Dwight puts it, is whatever you can guard. So for Tamani Kamara, he's basically a positionless basketball player because he can defend 1 through 5. And Drew Holiday can defend point guards. He can defend guards. He can also defend that small forward spot. You know, Holiday, for being an undersized guy, really strong, stout, and a good defender. So we'll see. But more importantly, what's it going to mean for their offense? How good are they going to have to be offensively to be able to be successful and win games if this lineup that we see today is what it's going to be on opening night? All right, 503-248-0620. I appreciate your time. Hope you're enjoying your Wednesday and the sunshine. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, even for those of you who are not Denver Bronco fans, you got to read this new piece out by Seth Wickersham where he was given unbridled access to the Broncos and head coach Sean Payton throughout the course of last season and their playoff run, which ended in the AFC Championship game to the New England Patriots in the middle of a horrendous snowstorm and with no Bo Nix because he broke his ankle at the end of that divisional round game against Buffalo. But Sean Payton is crazy. He is your typical big ego, really smart, ultra competitive, crazy football coach. He actually had armed security guards bring in the Lombardi Trophy and $500,000 in cash to show his players what they were playing for. Now, who does that? Sean Payton does that. But he had some other radical ideas. And I'm reading this report here from the Broncos Wire. The piece is too long to read. It's an extended article. You got to check it out. And it says here in Seth Wickersham's recent ESPN article featuring an in-depth look at the AFC playoff journey through the eyes of the Denver Broncos and head coach Sean Payton, Wickersham reveals that the 2024 squad could have looked radically different. In his article, Wickersham said that Payton considered bringing New England Patriots legend Bill Belichick on as head coach of the Broncos, while Payton would take on an assistant head coaching role in charge of the offense. Belichick was let go by the Patriots ahead of the 2024 season and remained out of football until he was hired by the University of North Carolina to be their head coach in 2025. Payton's proposal would have been to have Belichick lead Denver to at least 15 wins, enough to pass Hall of Fame coach Don Shula on the NFL's all-time wins list, and then Sean Payton would take over as head coach. Payton and Belichick both came from the coaching tree of Bill Parcells. Payton in Dallas, Belichick in New York with the Giants and Jets and New England, and both share a mutual respect for each other. Belichick was known for his stifling, innovative defenses, while Payton has been praised as one of the most successful offensive masterminds of his era. With strong defensive acumen from Belichick and offensive genius from Payton, one can only imagine how far the 2024, possibly 25 Broncos could have gone. That is unreal. Quote, in the end, it was just too complicated and maybe too fanciful, Wickersham wrote of Payton's idea. I mean, can you imagine that? Like, who comes up with that idea? Hey, I have a good idea. Let's hire Bill Belichick. I'll step down as head coach. He can be the head coach. He'll set the all-time mark in wins, and then I'll take back over as head coach. That's an insane idea. But that's the kind of stuff that goes through Sean Payton's mind. But very competitive. The other thing that jumps out in this piece is the healthy relationship between Bo Nix and Sean Payton and the respect that exists between the two of them. And what I like about this is Sean Payton as a head coach is very demanding. Like a lot of the great coaches are, they want the best from you. But Bo Nix is equally competitive and wants to be a great player. And so the two of them, with their confidence and their competitiveness, will have long conversations about game plans. They will share ideas, but neither one of them is afraid to give pushback when they feel like that time is needed. And I think that's incredibly important because in sports, if you think about it, really, is there a more important relationship in all of sports than the coach and the quarterback? I would argue not. I think it's the most important. You're talking about quarterback, which is the most important position in sports, and then that relationship between coach and quarterback in the NFL is critical. So I like the fact that Sean Payton is challenging Bo. Bo has thick skin. He has a willingness to learn and a desire to be the best. And so when you get those two guys like that together that match up well with a common goal, I think good things are going to happen. And so I'm excited to see the development or continued development of Bo Nix as he continues on in his career. And for Sean Payton, he's just one of those guys who is going to coach until he can't do it anymore. These guys, the maniacal ones like Peyton, it's in their blood. They can't get away from it. They don't want to get away from it. And when they're not coaching, they have no idea what to do with themselves because they're coaches, man. I mean, that's their life's mission, is to be a coach. But for Bo Nix, and you all know him well from his time at Oregon with the Ducks, he's a special one. Now, is he the best quarterback in the NFL? No. Can you win games and possibly a championship with Bo Nix? Absolutely. But I like his competitive desire. He's got toughness. And with his smarts and his accuracy, I think we'll see things continue to move forward in the right direction. Now, the other thing that's great is Davis Webb is going to take over as offensive coordinator, play caller this year for the Broncos. Now, it doesn't mean that Sean Payton won't have input. He will. And there might be times where Payton may overrule a decision by Webb based on the situation, the game, and what he wants to see done. But I like that Payton, as confident as he is in his own abilities, it's he's getting older. And what Wickersham points out in that piece is that Payton said that calling plays or being an offensive coordinator and putting together a game plan and calling plays throughout the game, as you get older, it becomes harder. He said it's like driving in the rain at night. And so it's weird that he used that concept because I can relate to that. I've loved driving ever since I started driving, and I've never been afraid to drive anywhere or try anything, right? I like to explore. I would say that the day I got my license is one of the greatest days of my life because of that freedom and the ability to be able to take off and drive anywhere for no particular reason. I love that. But as I've gotten older and my eyesight has deteriorated, I've noticed that at nighttime when I'm driving, I don't feel very comfortable. And I've got my windows on my car tinted. So at nighttime when it's raining, the visibility, it just makes me a little bit uneasy because I don't see as well. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. But that's how Peyton described calling plays at an older age. But one of the important things about being great, whether it's an athlete or a coach, is being able to recognize and understand what you have and what your strengths are and where you're at. And being able to recognize weaknesses too. And Sean Payton did a good job of realizing that, it's time for me to step aside and let someone else call the plays. And it's important for a couple of different reasons. One, you recognize that, someone might be able to do a better job. And that's probably hard for a guy like Sean Payton to admit. But also, you're giving opportunity to younger coaches like he got with Parcells, where you're getting a chance to promote and develop these other guys so they can take over. That's a good thing. You want to see that. Very similar to what we saw with the Toronto Raptors when Jay Triano was given the head coaching job. He recognized the great work of Micah Nori and elevated him to his lead assistant because he respected his work, his grind, his ability to create relationships, the way he communicated, but also the detailed scouting reports, the advanced scouting, the scouting reports, being able to put together game plans, his offensive acumen. You recognize those things, so you want to give more power and promote those type of people. And if the fact that Sean Payton's willing to do that tells me a great many things about him. Now, you can be arrogant and be great and be confident in yourself, but when you can recognize, you know what, I'm not the man. I got to let someone else take over who might be able to do a better job. That's a sign of growth, and that's cool, man. That's really good. When you have great leaders, great people, sharp individuals willing to acknowledge and then step aside and promote, that's a sign that that person's on top of things. I think that's good. It's hard for those guys to step aside and say, you know what, I'm not the man anymore. Just like professional boxers, some of these great athletes, they're the last to know that they're losing it. And when you can recognize that and understand who you are and adapt, then you're going to be able to make progress. So we'll see. We'll see how things shake out. But I love the NFL this year because, again, on paper, it could change like it often does. But if you look at the conferences, AFC and NFC, the amount of quality teams that are going to be challenging for the postseason it's off the chain. In the AFC East, you have Buffalo and New England, two clear playoff teams. Miami and the Jets would look like teams that will not make the postseason. Well, the Jets never really make the postseason because they're just a garbage franchise who make bad decisions, and they have year after year. They've been bad most of my life. So that's two teams. In the AFC North, you've got Baltimore, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. 3 teams out of the North who are going to be challenging for the postseason. Probable playoff teams. And then you got the Browns. They stink. They're focused on positioning themselves for the draft to be able to get their franchise quarterback. That's what it would appear. So that's 5 teams thus far. In the AFC South, Houston, Jacksonville, Indianapolis. Now, only 2 of those 3 made the postseason last year, but Indianapolis was well on their way until they had an unfortunate quarterback injury. That's 8 teams. And then when you go to AFC West, you got 3 teams: Denver, Kansas City, and the LA Chargers. 11 teams in the AFC, which are going to be right there challenging. That's pretty impressive. 11 out of 16. And then in the NFC, we start with the East. Philadelphia, Washington, Dallas. That's 3 teams that will challenge for postseason play. I don't know if all 3 are going to make it, but all 3 are in a position to do that. We leave the Giants out. In the NFC North, you have what could be all 4 teams: Bears, Lions, Packers, Vikings. All 4 of those teams are quality. That's 7 teams. You go to the South, Carolina, Tampa, and I would say that maybe the Falcons, but that puts you at 9. And then you've got the NFC West. You've got the Rams, 49ers, and Seahawks. That's 12 teams. So 11 of the 16 are clearly challenging for the postseason in the AFC, 12 out of the 16 in the NFC. And obviously the Cardinals are, well, they never challenge for anything. They're like the Browns or the Jets. They suck. And they have for an extended period of time. But I love it. And really, the quality conference, maybe it's the NFC now. It's quite possible. And I think the 2 best divisions in football are the AFC and NFC West. In terms of overall quality, the quarterback play, the coaching, it doesn't get much better than that. I mean, look at what you have in terms of coaching. McDonald, who just won a Super Bowl, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and Jim Harbaugh. So you've got 6 teams between the 2 divisions that are legit contenders and 6 head coaches that are basically all-timers. Terrific. And so there you have it. And we'll see what the Chargers can do this year. They've had playoff failures. I think for them it's just a matter of staying healthy and keeping their offensive line intact so they can really be effective, later in the season. The injuries derailed them last year. Same thing with the 49ers. They had a great year. They really took advantage of the schedule they had, but by the time they got to the postseason and arrived in Seattle, the injuries had dismantled them. And they got the doors blown off because they were beat up. So it's all about health. And, teams that are healthier at the end of the year tend to do better come postseason time. But there you have it. Love what the NFL is going to provide. And we're now less than a month away from the NFL Hall of Fame game. And then before you know it, we'll be in camps. And then we'll have both college football and the NFL to really focus on. I did see today where the NCAA sent a letter of inquiry to the University of Cincinnati for the time that Brendan Sorsby was there, when apparently, according to reports, he was placing a lot of bets and the school really did nothing. Good luck, NCAA. Anytime the NCAA now sends a letter of inquiry, it's basically meaningless because they have no power. No power whatsoever. And that's why, or part of the reason why college football, major college sports is a joke right now, because the NCAA is a toothless governing body. And part of the reason why we need reform desperately. So we'll see. We'll see how things shake out. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. You can jump on board. The Godfather, Dwight Jane, is going to join us coming up at 420. Really want to focus in on the latest with the negotiations between the city and the Trailblazers, but also get his take on the roster and how he thinks the coaching staff will go about finding the right combinations of players for not only who's going to start, but also who's going to finish. and what type of team they're going to need to be if this roster is going to remain, pretty much what it is. Now, we know they're going to add at least another player to get up to the bare minimum. I wouldn't expect it to be a big-time player. They have not dipped into the mid-level exception like a lot of teams, and I think that's just because of the lack of quality in the free agent crop that was out there. But we'll ask him, too, if he thinks the Blazers are going to set up to make another move. Will it happen before the season? Or are they going to stand pat and then wait and continue to see what happens? My biggest concern right now with the roster construction, based on what they have with all the guards, especially with Drew and with Dame and Ja, where's the playing time going to come for Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe? And is this latest move of getting Ja Morant, is it just a case where the Blazers wanted to get a distressed asset because they saw great value and a way to unload Jeremy Grant's contract without attaching a pick? Or is it an indictment on what they've seen thus far from Shaedon and from Scoot? Because the problem is with the players that they have at that position, where are they going to carve out the quality minutes for both Shaedon and Scoot to be able to develop? And so I believe this after the season was over. I still don't think the Blazers, have enough quality data to be able to make any bold judgments about what they have in both of their young players. And what's interesting about that is that these are the first two big picks of the Joe Cronin era as general manager. To have those two guys, to take those two guys, and yet now it would appear that they're not going to have, quality minutes for those two. Now, of course, throughout the season, you have injuries. You have different things pop up where, guys are going to get more playing time. It happens with basically every team every season. So there'll be, spots throughout the year where they're going to be able to play bigger minutes. But, how are you going to develop them? I don't know the answer to that. So we'll get the latest from the Godfather. And Hairfest is coming up 2026. Well, Jason Feldman's going to join us in studio coming up at 5, and we'll talk music. And I enjoy that. Love talking music. Love talking with Jason. He's a good dude. And we'll talk about Hairfest and some of the different tribute bands that are going to be out there. Now, if you want to jump on board, you can. 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. You can also find me on social media at Chad in Rip City. And if you're a Blazer fan, like where are you at today with where they're at and the Ja move, the coaching staff changes? Are you content? Are you concerned? Like, what's going through your mind? 503-248-0620. We'll keep things rolling. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on a Wednesday here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, Shacker's just informed me that with Jason Feldman coming up at 5 o'clock. Jason Feldman coming up at 5 o'clock.
Not just AC/DC and Bon Jovi at Hairfest.
That's right. And the name of this group is Innocent Men, which is a play off of his song Innocent Man. Now, have you started working through? Did I send you that email yet? Gosh, I'm such an idiot. I think we have some good music for everyone to be able to sample, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to forward this over to you right now, Michael Shacker. I did see Billy Joel in concert once. I was working with a guy named Robbie down in San Francisco, and he was able to access tickets. And it was during the summertime. The weather was, it was perfect. And it was at the San Francisco Giants ballpark. I forgot what they called it at the time. It's changed names, AT&T or Pac Bell or whatever it was, but that's where the concert was. And what was really sweet is before we went to the show, we had some tie-in through the radio station down there where we were able to go down to the stadium, the ballpark, and talk to the guy who was in charge of the setup crew. And so he walked us through the entire process of setting up in the ballpark for a concert. It was kind of interesting. Like, there's a lot of people involved in a big tour. You don't realize the numbers and all the work that they do, but they grind, right? So that was pretty neat. But the concert was nice. First time I had seen Billy Joel. I've only seen him once. I regret not seeing the tour where he and Elton John were together. I've not seen Elton John, and I wish that I would have seen Elton John. Now, I did hear part of Elton John's concert. This is back in like 95-ish. I had a girlfriend at the time who was working at the Coliseum when Elton John was in concert. I can't remember if he was with Billy Joel at this time. This is a long time ago. But she did sneak me into the arena, so I was able to hear a couple of songs, which was cool. But I've not technically seen him. But what I liked about Billy Joel is he had a portion in his concert, and he plays all the songs. Anything you'd want to hear, any of his big hits, he's going to play everything. But he had a portion of the show where he actually let the crowd decide what song was going to be played. He would ask, and based on the cheers, he would shift up the set list and do that. I thought that was pretty sweet. You know, most bands that I've seen, one of my favorite websites in the history of websites is setlist.com. I am one of those people, I don't know if you're the same way, I want to know before I go to a show what songs are going to be played. So that way, if I need to conduct any illegal recording, I know when the song's coming and I can prepare properly for it. I record a lot of songs, and then what I do is I turn them into MP3s and put them in my own, playlist. It gives me a way to relive the moment, the experience. I was blown away with the very first concert that I went to, and ever since then, I love going to watch live music. Shacker does. Most of us do, right? It's awesome. So I like to look at the set list and know what's coming. And then that way, if I know ahead of time how many songs are going to be played, if it's less than what I would consider acceptable, I'll get ticked off about it, but then I'll be mentally prepared when I go to the show. And really, it was the Hall & Oates concert out at Mary Hill Winery that forced me into looking at the set list ahead of time. I went out there. They played like 12 or 13 songs. The show was short, and it's a long drive out there, and I was ticked off. I'm like, you guys have a deep catalog. You guys have a lot of number one hits, some of them which you did not play tonight. I just felt like they were going through the motions, and so I was like, that ticked me off, and then I went on I just didn't listen to it for a while. I had to pay them back a little bit. I was upset with that. It's like, come on, man. When you're paying top dollar to see a big-time act and then they kind of shortchange you a little bit, it's very irritating. But it's also neat to be able to know what songs you're going to play, or you can look at a tour. But my whole point being that most big bands, once they set a list of songs to play for a concert tour, they don't deviate from that. I think part of that is, because when they do the same show and they get it set, it allows them to continue to perfect that particular show. So when people show up in a different city, at a different arena, you can be your absolute best, because you've got that repetition down, right? This song, you know what's coming, you can be good at it. And I like that. But for Billy Joel to just kind of freestyle it up there and ask people what they want to hear, I thought that was pretty cool because I've never seen another act do that before. So there you have it. And I saw that concert. or I saw a question put out there on social the other day about your first show. Name a song from the first concert you went to. And my response was Animal. The first concert that I went to was at the Coliseum. It was Def Leppard. And that was the first time I experienced a live show. I went with my buddy Jason, and it was awesome. And from that point forward, I've been seeking live concerts forever. It's the best. So there you have it. So Hairfest coming up. It's a big bash of tribute bands. And I've seen a number of tribute bands, and they do, most of them that I've seen do a terrific job because they have worked so hard to perfect the music, because they know if you're going to be a tribute band, you can't be jacking around with the songs. It's got to sound legit. So the ones that I've seen do sound really good. And my buddy Alex, when he had his, I think, 50th birthday, he rented out a place in Old Town, downtown Tacoma, and he had 2 bands come in. He hired 2 bands, a Journey tribute band and a Queen tribute band, and the whole idea of the party was 80s themed. So when we got there, we had to all dress up in costume. I went with a Top Gun outfit, so I looked like Maverick, and I was wearing the Go to Hell sunglasses, the aviators. But everyone was dressed up in some type of 80s gear, and then all of these snacks and the treats and the dinner, everything was 80s themed in terms of what we ate or drank. And so, like, part of it, there was one of the food items was a hamburger helper and tuna helper. And that was like really big back in the 80s, right? It's pretty funny. So there you have it. Like I've seen a couple of pictures of those floating up on social recently, the Flavor Ice. Is that the name of those popsicles? All I know is that they were always available at Nana's house. And during the summertime, you would utilize those bad boys to cool off. And I used to love them when they'd melt just a little bit and you would suck the juice out of it. I thought that was genius. But you know, all the things you grew up with. For some of you, it might be different because you grew up in the 90s or even later than that. But for people who are in my age range, you know, we all grew up with the same experience. But hamburger helper was one of those things. And I hate tuna. So I've never liked tuna. The idea of tuna helper makes me gag. I'll never do it. In fact, I saw that. What's one food that made you gag when you were younger that you've never been able to get with? For me, that's deviled eggs. I've got a long list, but deviled eggs are disgusting. Like, whoever came up with that idea needs to be punched in the face. And my mom has always loved them. I don't like the way they smell. I don't like the way they look. It just makes me yee. Like, who was that thing? Who's the guy that ate all the hot dogs? I've met him before. He came to one of our shows. Yeah, Joey Chestnut. I'll share with you. You think the hot dog. Yeah, not exactly. He's done a couple other things where I'm like, what? And it. Yeah, not exactly. He's done a couple other things where I'm like, what? And it involves foods that make me gag. So I'm impressed. All right. The Godfather, Dwight James, coming up at 4:20. You can jump on board 503-248-0620. And then we'll talk Hairfest with Jason Feldman at 5. All right, now 4 o'clock chat here. What's up, my friends? The Trailblazers will kick off their Summer League action coming up Friday night in Vegas. Meet the Suns, tip off at 8. It's going to be on ESPNU. The Mariners hold a half-game lead in the AL West. They're at the Marlins today. George Kirby got the call for Seattle. Checking the scoreboard. The Mariners right now and Marlins scoreless, top of the second in Miami. Elsewhere, the Blue Jays shut out the Giants in San Francisco today by a final of 10-0. Elsewhere, the NCAA has sent a letter of inquiry to the University of Cincinnati for the time that quarterback Brendan Sorsby was at the school and on the team. Justin Bieber has been announced will join the World Cup final. 06 telephone number. If you want to reach out and be a part of the show, 503-248-0620. Number, if you want to reach out and be a part of the show, 503-248-0620. All right, I do want to play some nonsense for you. You know, I've talked about the LeBron PR team, and I'm not making it up. It's reality that a lot of people in the media, sports media business, are represented by Clutch, which is a company backed by LeBron James. And so what happens is that you have a lot of people who are making the case and continuing to push the narrative that LeBron is the GOAT, greatest basketball player of all time, better than MJ, and they're always pushing that narrative. And then always willing to step up and make excuses for why things don't go the way that they should have, or when things don't work out, like LeBron's time with the Lakers. He did win a championship, but things never really materialized over the last couple of years. I mean, not a surprise. I think we all knew that the Lakers were not legit title contenders, even with Luka, based on the roster that had been constructed. But I don't like people being disingenuous or pushing a narrative when there's a purpose behind it. Just be real and say what you think without the nonsense. But here's an example. Max Kellerman and Rich Paul, who were part of that Clutch team, talking about LeBron and why things didn't work in LA with Luka and the Lakers. Let's take a listen.
It's not so easy for him when you say, well, he's the smartest guy, he'll know what to do. He may know what to do, but doesn't want to step on toes. So, I felt that was the case with the Lakers, Rich. I'm sorry. I went to Lakers games with you, sat in those great seats, watched very closely. The team would have functioned better had Luka dribbled a little less, LeBron been playing point more, and I got the feeling like, I know this is Luka's team. I'm not trying to step on any toes, when I felt like he needed to assert himself a little more, to tell you the truth.
I said it. You're not wrong. You're 50% right in what you said in terms of just psychologically. But it's for a different reason. He was raised right from a basketball perspective. So when the coach asks you to do something and play a certain way,
do it.
He doesn't know how to buck. This is what the coach asked me to do. Coach Dan Brock asked me to play this way. When I was really young, Coach Frankie Walker Sr. asked me to play this way. Then Coach Drew asked me to play this way. That's the only thing he knows how to do. And so he has such a profound respect for the game and everything that it entails. Obviously, I'm not the third option. We know that. No day. But if this is what I'm being asked to do, then I'm going to do that, especially if it helps the team win.
I think.
All right, when I talk about washing LeBron's balls, this would be a perfect example. Yeah, things, according to Max, would have went a lot better with the Lakers in LA had Luka dribbled a little bit less and let LeBron be the point guard. It's like, come on, man. The Lakers were kind enough to let them paint the picture or write the story or tell the story as to why LeBron was moving on to a different team. The truth is, they had no intention of re-signing him because they were going to rebuild the roster and the team around Luka, which is the smart thing to do. LeBron is at the end of his career. Luka is a phenom and one of the best players in the league. You need to build around him. He's the future. So that kind of stuff's nonsense. Just don't lie. Just tell the truth and give us the facts, and then we'll decide who we think the best is. But you don't need to make excuses for LeBron. But the idea that somehow the Lakers would have been better if Luka's dribbling less, that's absurd. Luka's at the best when he's got the basketball in his hands, right? Same thing with Denny Avdia, which is another reason why I have no idea how the Blazers are going to make it work with the 5 guards and Denny. That's going to be a fun thing to watch. How the coaching staff finds a way to make it work with the mix of players they got right now. All right, telephone number 503-248-0620. I'll get to some of the absurd exploits of Joey Chestnut, who just won another hot dog eating competition on the 4th of July weekend. I had mentioned, certain foods that make me gag. I've got a long list, like I'm sure you do. But I think the question was, like, what foods made you gag as a youngster that you've never been able to come around on? Deviled eggs, disgusting. Like, whoever came up with that idea, not a good idea. Shacker doesn't like it either. Yuck. Tuna, like out of a can. When you open that bad boy up, it does not smell good. Like, I have no desire to eat that. And I wish I did because it's very helpful. A lot of great nutrients there, but I can't do it.
Joey Chestnut has the record for most hard-boiled eggs in 8 minutes. Ate 141 of them in 8 minutes.
I know. I'm going to get to that. Patience, my friend.
Well, I'm excited.
I've got a long list of different things he's consumed. It's ridiculous. Let's go out to the phones. Let's go out to Colton, the birthplace of puppy shots, and bring on Matt. Matt, I appreciate it. Where are you at on the deviled eggs, my friend?
Chad, I think that's a wild take. Deviled eggs are so good. I don't understand. I just saw a thing on social media the other day. It was like just a reminder that it doesn't have to be a holiday to eat deviled eggs. And I told my wife, and she made deviled eggs. They're excellent. Fantastic. You're crazy.
You're a sicko. You're a sicko. And you know what's really funny about this is that I went over to my chiropractor's house, Doc Mitch, and he's like the world's most interesting man, him and Dave Bartu. And he was smoking. He had never tried this before. He literally had eggs on his smoker. And I'm like, why do you have eggs on your smoker? He's like, I'm going to see what it's like, and I'm going to make deviled eggs out of them. And then he and his wife proceeded to talk about how much they like deviled eggs. I said, I got to be honest with you, they're garbage, and I hate them. And they thought I was crazy, like you do.
I think it's a crazy take. I will tell you, though, a quick story of mine.
Yeah.
My thing I can't eat is cooked broccoli, because when I was a kid, I hated cooked broccoli, and I would hide it, and I got caught hiding it one time. So I came up with a new system. I was like, I'm going to spit it in the toilet, and I spit it in the toilet. And my mom went to the bathroom, and she came out holding this toilet cooked broccoli, and she was like, "You can either eat this cooked broccoli or a whole head of raw broccoli." And I sat in the corner and cried and ate a whole thing of raw broccoli because she wouldn't tell me if she peed on it or not. So to this day, man, when that's being cooked, I can't eat it. I can't do it.
Oh, dude, I love it. You're the best, Matt. I appreciate that phone call.
Broccoli tastes good without the pea. So
yeah. Well, the funny thing about broccoli is, like, I love broccoli, and I will eat large quantities of it because I understand the nutrient value. But there is a downside to broccoli for me. It gives me gas. And so I know on days where I eat heavy broccoli or nights, like the other night I had a lot of broccoli, like an excessive amount because I love it. And so the next morning at the golf course, man, I was like, I had to be careful. I had to make sure I was downwind because I did not want to, shall we say, offend the guys that I was playing with on the course. Let's just put it that way. Because I love it.
You're outdoors. Is it that heavy?
It was bad. They would have known. And it's pretty distracting. Like if I would have done that and if they would have been downwind trying to line up for a putt, like you could distract someone. I could have caused them to lip a putt out because it smelled so bad. I'm not proud of it. I'm just saying certain foods do that, right? Like Taco Bell. Like if you go to Taco Bell, you know what's coming. It's going to taste really good, and then things are going to get really bad, right?
Yeah, that's why I don't eat it anymore like I used to.
All right, let's look at Joey Chestnut. So this guy, and I've met him before. He's a cool dude. It's pretty amazing. Like, only in America can you have so many different ways to make a living. This guy's a competitive eater.
I'm familiar with this stuff because I've watched his videos on YouTube. Watched him eat a whole burrito-zilla.
All right, let's take a look at some of these feats by Joey Chestnut. It's not just hot dogs, all right? The guy does more than wieners. Tacos at Taco Bell. July 29th, 2011, 53 soft beef tacos from Taco Bell in 10 minutes. Like, that would have been a situation where you would not want to have played golf with him the next morning, like after I ate the broccoli. 53 soft beef tacos. Are you freaking kidding me? Pulled pork back in 2006, 9 pounds, 6 ounces of smoked pulled pork at Horseshoe Casino in Council Bluffs. Salt potatoes. I don't even know what that is. 13 pounds of salt potatoes, Wild Carp Week in 10 minutes. Will you Google salt potatoes to tell me what the heck that is? Jalapeno poppers. Like, we all love those, really rich. 118 jalapeno poppers at the University of Arizona. 10 minutes. Unbelievable. Funnel cake. 5.9 pounds in 10 minutes back in 2009.
I'm seeing a recipe for salt potatoes. They're small, unpeeled baby potatoes boiled in heavily salted water.
That sounds good.
Hope they cool down before you ate all those.
Yeah, okay, so I've had salt potatoes. I like them, but I don't want 13 pounds of them. That is incredible. Pepperoni rolls. 43 of them in 10 minutes. Bologna slices. 16 pounds in 8 minutes. 47 grilled cheese sandwiches, 10 minutes back in 2006. Pizza Hut pizzones, 7.5 Pizza Hut pizzones in 10 minutes. Burritos, long form, 14.5 pounds. Illegal Pete's burritos in 10 minutes. Hostess donuts. Those are tasty little morsels. 257 in 6 minutes in 2018. Can you imagine the sugar rush you would get from eating 257 Hostess donuts? 28.5 canteen sandwiches in 10 minutes in Iowa. Cherry pie. 17.5 pounds, 8 minutes, Washington, D.C. in 2022. Chicken wings, 182 of them in 30 minutes. That's ridiculous. 102 tamales in 12 minutes. 121 Twinkies. Good gracious. In 6 minutes? Wow. Ramen noodles. 10 cups of Nissin ramen noodles in an hour and 50 minutes? I don't even know what to say about that. All right. He's done 76 Nathan hot dogs in 10 minutes. That's crazy. Asparagus? Oh my gosh. 12 pounds of deep fried asparagus spears in 10 minutes. I wonder what that did to his pee. All right, there you have it. 81 waffles in 8 minutes. There you go. Shrimp cocktail. And the list goes on. I'm just telling you, he's done a lot of crazy things. And the list goes on. I'm just telling you, he's done a lot of crazy things. But the hard-boiled eggs, 141 in 8 minutes. No, thank you.
If he's traveling all over the nation, I hope he's flying in a private plane. I wouldn't want to sit next to him.
15 16-ounce bowls of gumbo. 25.5 baked bear ice cream sandwiches in San Diego in 6 minutes. A 2-foot pizza slice, 10 minutes. That's absolutely insane. 103 Crystal Burgers, 8 minutes. That's pretty good. All right, we'll keep things rolling. We'll do a deep dive on the Trailblazers, mainly with the arena negotiations that aren't going. The Godfather, Dwight Jaynes, is coming up next. All right, joining us, my good friend and someone you got to check out on Substack, the Godfather Dwight Jaynes is back on the Rip City Drive. Dwight, we were just having a discussion about deviled eggs. They make me gag. Are you a fan of deviled eggs or not?
They make me worse than gag.
Yes.
Put it that way.
I knew it. When Shacker
No.
asked me, he goes, do you think the Godfather likes deviled eggs? I was like, no, he's too classy for that.
No, I don't like deviled eggs. I don't like hard-boiled eggs either, to tell you the truth.
No,
It's
not
just
a fan.
not my way of I don't consume eggs that way. Got to cook them up for me.
We were admiring,
Fry 'em.
yeah, fry them. Yeah, we were admiring some of Joey Chestnut's exploits. 141 hard-boiled eggs in 8 minutes. I can't even comprehend.
Yeah, but the way he eats, he greases his mouth and throat up with water.
Yeah.
And then he just swallows things. I don't know that he really ever tastes anything.
That's
so
true.
it might not be as tough for him.
Yeah, for you and I, we want to sit down at El Gaucho and be able to spend about 4 hours enjoying our meal and the conversation and the service, right? That's what it's all about.
That's correct. Yes, you have it right.
Well, Godfather, we have a lot of things to discuss. I want to start with the latest that you're hearing on the negotiations between the Blazers and the city and where the council is out right now when it comes to getting this deal done so that the Blazers can remain here in town long term. What is the latest that you're hearing from the people you know?
Well, Chad, I'll stick kind of with what I've said before. I think there is a deal in place, and I think it will eventually pass the council. I think there's a lot of posturing going on right now so that the politicians who are getting elected or reelected in November can tell their constituents they did everything they could to stop it. But I think it is going to pass, and I think a lot of what we're seeing now is just lip service and kind of showing constituents that they care and they don't really want it to happen. But really, it's a bitter pill that they're going to have to swallow. There comes a time when you throw your hands in the air and say, I surrender. The guy has them backed into a corner, and there's really nothing they can do. I've said this over and over. These renovations are going to have to happen at some point, with or without the Blazers. If they happen with the Blazers, then you have all that money coming in from the state based on the player and personnel income tax payments. So you have a lot of help in that regard if the Blazers are involved. If they leave town, you have no help, and you're going to have to foot the entire bill to have it done because you own it. So I would say this, it's going to happen eventually. I've kind of taken that stand all along. But, we're going to have to sit around through, torturous delays before it finally does happen, probably right before the season starts.
Okay, that's what I was wondering with the council. I had assumed that based on some of the comments that they were playing, it was kind of like political theater where they want to pretend that they're standing up for their constituents, even though they know what you and I know, that they have no choice but to get the deal done. So that's really what's going on here. They're trying to placate their constituents, but in the end, they know they're going to get this deal done and approve it.
Yeah, I think so, Chad. And political theater is a really good way of putting it because really all politics are theater. Everybody's playing their role, decided by whoever's giving them so much money. And you saw, I think, a big development there where a couple of unions have stepped out and said one counselor is going to lose their support if they don't support the renovation, because a lot of union jobs are involved in something like that, and they're going to stand up for their guys, and that's what they're supposed to do as a union. So in this case, the unions will be a big partner for the Trailblazers in pushing this through. And I think you might see more counselors involved in that kind of pressure. I think they singled out Mitch Green for the attention on this, but it's going to go to all the counselors who may be opposed.
Have you heard any details on the length of the lease? Like when it's approved, is it still 20 years? Are they going to be able to get 30 years? How long do you think the lease is going to be once the deal's approved and Tom Dundon has to sign?
I think, Chad, it's going to be 20. That's what I heard was agreed upon. Now, he'll still push for less, and the council will push for more, but I think 20 is kind of the agreed upon time. And really, that protects the city. He won't own this team in 20 years. I'm convinced of that. By then, he'll be too tempted to sell at the enormous profit he will get from the appreciation of the franchise.
Yeah.
So by then, it'll belong to somebody else, and we can go ahead and have the same arguments with somebody else. But you know, these buildings, they take upkeep. And, I mean, I've been in Madison Square Garden, and, you know, the whole concourse, all kinds of things have been renovated in Madison Square Garden. It doesn't show from the outside, but I guarantee you the inside is shown. And somebody reminded me on Twitter, Chad, the big current thing now is to have people be able to see the court from the concourse.
Yes.
And that takes quite a bit of renovating, but it's going on in baseball, football, basketball stadiums alike, where it gives people a chance to kind of hang out, have their drink or their meal, you know, pick up members of the opposite sex, visit with family and friends, whatever they want to do. And you see this over and over, and it's proved to be a valuable thing. And I think the other thing that they might want to do is also more premium seats and fewer suites. The suites in Portland right now are really a hard sell. Yeah. There's just not a lot of corporations. They better hang on to MOTA, because naming rights right now are really hard to get in a lot of places, not just Portland. But I can't imagine trying to sell that in Portland right now. So, you know, and the other thing, teams are going to have it rougher. People look at the TV deals and everything, but individual teams in markets like this one are going to have it tougher because they're not getting the big check from local television and local radio. So they've got to tighten their belts too, and I understand that. So I think all in all, the only way to get this done is to eventually settle, and they'll make them wait until. I keep hearing November's kind of the deadline for getting started on the renovations in time, and I do believe we're going to see renovations occurring now during the season. People are going to be a little bit inconvenienced. I've compared it, I think, on your show to the airport, where you're going to have to walk around something or through something, and you won't have maybe full use of that arena for certain periods of time.
Yeah, you and I were joking about that now when you go to a Blazer game, it's like going to the E gate to catch a Southwest flight. You got to walk 2 miles just to get into the arena.
Yeah, very likely. And, you know, Dundon has put all his leverage and his force on this, and that's enough. And I'm still not convinced that he did that because he wouldn't mind moving. You know, he's got the best of all worlds now. If they vote it down, he can move. If they vote for it, he's going to have a nice building in a couple of years to do what he wants with. So he's in a can't-lose position.
Hey, where do you stand on – a lot of people have said that he needs skin in the game, right, that he wants the Oregon taxpayers to pay for the renovations. Where do you come out when it comes to an arena-owned building by the city – and you've got these billionaire owners not wanting to put in their own cash? Where do you come out on that? Is that a fair ask of an owner to have some skin in the game, or is the fact that he paid $4.25 billion, he and his partners for the team, enough skin in the game?
I think it is enough skin in the game, Chad, and I think he paid more money than he might have had he come here and put his finger in the air to check which way the wind was blowing. He knows now he's not going to get the kind of cooperation from the city that he thought he might get. He knows now the state of the city. He knows now about the taxes he's going to have to pay. It's a little different story now than might have been earlier, and he's paying a lot of money for that franchise, and it frankly may not be worth that much money right now. We'll see. And without the renovations, it's going to be a tough sell, and it's a tough sell in this city right now the way they are. Major corporations leaving one right after another. they rely on corporate support. That's where the big money comes from.
Yeah.
People can talk all they want about what the tickets cost and all that, and that's fine, and it's tough for them to pay for. The big ticket, though, is getting major corporations to come in to sponsor nights, to sponsor advertising, to back that team in a heavy way, and they're not getting that probably, and it's going to be difficult for him. I sympathize to a degree. Yeah, he's a billionaire, but he sunk a lot of his money in this, and it's going to be a tough go.
What did you think of the Alyssa Gary report in the Oregonian that 2 local labor unions rescinded their reelection endorsements for City Councilor Mitch Green, saying his hesitation to approve the major union-built public works project are in opposition to union member goals?
Chad, it's going to happen to more counselors if they don't change their tune. A lot of the Democratic support right now at the state, local, national levels is coming from Democrats, and it's coming from unions all over the country, and especially in Oregon. Tina Kotek relies on those labor unions. That gets her elected every time, and all the counselors have to be mindful of that. That's where their support is coming from. And with the way the city's going, it's going to be a rougher election for them. There's still way more Democrats than Republicans, but I'm not sure how many Democrats have changed their opinions since the last election with what we've seen with corporations leaving. That's a lot of jobs we have lost in just the last year or so in this town. So, yeah, I'm not surprised at all. Mitch Green has been outspoken in what he believes. Watch the other counselors clam up now and what they say about this project. They're all going to say, "Now, well, we're considering it. Yeah, we haven't closed the door on it."
Yeah.
They're not gonna confront those unions head to head. It's just too expensive for them to do that.
That's pretty funny. We're talking to the Godfather, Dwight James. You can check him out on Substack. With the Trailblazers, by the way, good call on Jay Triano. That was the assistant you referenced that you couldn't give out the name, but knew it was a good chance he was going to join the Trailblazer staff. How much does it help a new head coach to have someone experienced like Jay Triano on staff?
Oh, I think it's huge. The thing about Jay is he will be honest. He will be honest with his head coach. He'll say, "No, I think we should do this," or "No, I wouldn't play this guy," whatever. That's what coaches need, is the sounding board. Now, they're not always going to take the assistant's advice because, the final decision rests with them, and they're going to do what they think is right. But that sort of dissenting voice on a staff is very important. They all need that. They need to hear different points of view. And really, Jay's been around the league so long, he has different ways of doing things that might be good for Mike and Nori to pick up and use. The other thing is he's got certain aspects of the game he's really good with. He's really good with offense. He's really good with inbounds plays. He's got a really good mind for that side of the game. So he's going to be very valuable. I think he relates to players well because if they don't know what a great player he was, they'll find out when he still can shoot at his age the way he shoots. I've seen him walk out in a business suit and make 8 or 9 3-pointers in a row from the corner. He's got trick shots. He's got all that stuff the players love. He was a great player for Team Canada in all sorts of world events, the Olympics, the national or the international FIBA things. Jay's got a really solid background, and he's really approachable to the media, which I love. And I just think he's going to be really good for the Trailblazers.
This roster, I like the value that they got in return for Ja Morant and being able to unload Jeremy Grant's contract. The fit doesn't make a lot of sense to me with 5 guards and Denny Avdia. So how is the coaching staff? How does this work when you have this group of players that's going to be smaller than the team they had last year? How do you go about finding the right combinations of players between your starters and the groups that are going to finish the games? How will they determine that?
It's going to be really difficult because they're not only small, they're a lesser defensive team this year than they were last year. And defense was kind of their calling card last year. It's what won them games, and it's going to be harder to win that way. They're going to have to play a trapping style with guards and smaller players hustling all over the place to cover open shooters. They're going to have to double team and trap a lot, I think, Chad. They're not going to rebound the ball well. I just don't see it. So much pressure on Donovan Clingan, not only to defend the rim, but to grab every possible rebound. It's going to be really rough. And they fortunately re-signed Williams to back him up, and that's going to be key because big people get injured. They'll both be injured during next season. I would prophesize that just because big guys do get injured, and they both did a little bit last year. No major injuries, knock on wood, but, they're going to have to sit out once in a while. The games come fast. They're going to play fairly good-sized minutes, and they're going to get their aches and pains, and you have to rest them to keep them healthy. So it's going to be really difficult. I think they do need a legit power forward who could come in and play good-sized minutes for them, or they're going to be in real trouble. And I can't imagine they would open the season with this sort of roster imbalance.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm having a hard time seeing that because the size is going to be an issue. And you would think that, they lack quality shooting to a degree. And this is a team right now, if it comes to camp as is, they're going to have to be a great offensive team if they're going to be able to compete, aren't they? Because the defense, as you mentioned, is going to be lacking.
Yeah, and the good sign is they're telling everybody we're set. This is the way we're prepared to open the season. That's what you say when you're trying to trade somebody. It is. Because the worst thing you can do is say, God, we got to get rid of one of our guards.
Yeah, you don't want to say that.
That price goes down. No, the price goes down. So you act like you're satisfied. You love these guys. You wouldn't want to trade any of them. That gives you a better chance to trade. Because as soon as I say this, somebody's going to hit me up on Twitter. Well, gee, Dwight, they say they're happy with all their guys. They're not going to trade anybody.
Yeah.
Well, no, they're smart enough to say they're not going to trade anybody. But that doesn't mean they won't. And they're waiting now to see what happens as we get closer to the season and get Summer League over with. They'll look at some young players in Summer League and see what they can find. But it's going to be really hard at this point. Free agency is just about dead now in the NBA because of the second apron. And players have figured that out. Rather than declare free agency, it's easier for them to sign an extension. And then if they don't like it 2 years down the road, I want to be traded.
Yeah.
And they get traded.
Yeah, no question.
That's what's happening, especially with the superstars. They demand to be traded. They're traded. They get their wish. So why should you be a free agent when you can just go ahead and take the extension, make good money for a couple of years, then ask for the trade?
That's a good point. One more question for you. Do you think this deal is just about, getting good value with a distressed asset, or is it an indictment of what the team may think about Scoot and Shaedon?
Boy, that's a good question. I don't know. The funny thing, Chad, I still think after all this time, they haven't made up their mind on either one of those guys.
I agree.
They never gave Scoot a chance to be the guy. It's like, here's the ball. You're running this team for the rest of the season. They've never done that. They've never done that for him. He showed marked improvement last year, played really well in the playoffs. I wouldn't give up on him now. He's like 22 years old. I wouldn't give up on him. You're going to need somebody in a couple of years when Dame is finished. And so I wouldn't do that. And Shaedon Sharpe, he's got the athleticism. He just can't shoot the ball from distance. And they're kind of hoping that comes around. If it does, they got a pretty good player. But, boy, it's taken a long time. Of the two, that's the one I'd probably be more willing to give up. I would get tired of waiting for the shooting to come around because most often, if it hasn't done that by now, it won't.
I agree. Yeah, that's the hard part when we talk about, the fit of adding Ja Morant is like, where are the minutes going to come if the roster is as is when the season begins? The minutes aren't going to be there for Scoot or Shaedon. And I agree with your assessment that they haven't collected enough data to know what they have on the two, but yet the minutes won't be there.
Yeah. And the one thing, Chad, too, they're also probably relying on this. Of those four guys, for sure someone's going to get hurt. Go back and look at the records. They all get hurt. All 4 of those guys have had injuries. Now, Dame, not so much during the prime of his career, but the last 2 or 3 years we've seen injuries.
Yep.
Drew Holiday, go back and check it out. John Morant, shoot, the last 3 years he's had trouble getting on the court. And so there you are, Scoot. We've seen his injuries. Shaden, he's been down. Part of the reason neither one of those guys has shown them enough minutes to know what they can do is that they've been hurt. So that will happen, and that will certainly buy more minutes for whoever is left standing.
Hey, what type of player do you think Travis Bazana is going to become?
It's funny. I actually told Mike Parker this a couple weeks ago before he made the All-Star. I cannot believe he made the All-Star team. That just astounds me because he hasn't really played that much. His batting average is under 250 now, but I think he has a chance to be a really good player. And his personality might make him one of those face of a team, face of a franchise, even face of a league kind of players because he's just really – got it figured out personality-wise, and he's so earnest in his love for the game. He studies hitting constantly. I think he's going to make himself into a better player as he gets more big league time. Once he adjusts up there, he'll figure it out. He has a chance to be a really good player.
That's awesome. Oh, by the way, I saw there's a video floating around on social I had not seen before, but it's Tony Gwynn doing a little hitting clinic with the T-ball. And I'm just blown away. Did you ever get a chance to meet him and talk to him about hitting?
I've talked to him, not necessarily so much about hitting, but I've seen the tapes and I've heard all he said, and he's a hitting genius. There's no question. He had the 1 year that was shortened that he could have hit 400 in, and it would have been nice if he could have done it. He's a good enough hitter to do that, and what a baseball player he was. Played in San Diego his whole time, so he doesn't get quite the credit some guys would have gotten in Boston or New York or Chicago or some great player.
Yeah,
great
he would
player.
be, if he was in New York with the Yankees, they would have, he'd have a bronze statue and everything, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you this right now. He's not deviled eggs.
All right, check him out at Substack. The Godfather Dwight James with us. Well, thanks for the update on the political theater here in Portland. I appreciate it, buddy.
Some Hairfest tickets in return for this.
All right, you got it, man. You got it. You can jam to whichever band you want, brother. Oh, by the way, have you seen Elton John live in concert?
I have, yes.
How good was he?
He was very good. Yeah. It was several years ago now at Moda Center, I believe. Yeah, it was at Moda Center. He was very good, very entertaining, and really enjoyed it.
That's awesome. All right, Godfather.
I've seen everybody almost in concert, Chad.
Okay, but what is the one band or artist you have not seen that you wish you could have seen?
Oh, well, Led Zeppelin. I never saw them. I really regret that. I missed that. I totally missed it. But that's the one I think of the most. Yeah.
Well, the good thing is they have a Led Zeppelin cover band at Hairfest, so you can rock out.
I know. I that's why I'm asking for tickets. Is there an Eagles cover band this year?
Yes, there is. Yep. Lion Eyes, I think, is their name or something like that.
Have you heard them?
They're good. Yeah, they sound good. You know, most of these cover bands, they just focus on those songs, so they become really good at them. It's amazing.
Yeah, I like Pink Floyd, too. I wish I'd have seen them. That's another band I never saw.
Oh, no question. All right, Godfather.
Did you see them, Chad?
I have not seen Pink Floyd. No, it's good. I'll talk music forever. I have not seen Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd live. I wish I would have. Michael Allen Harrison said he saw Led Zeppelin up at Kingdome back in the day. He said it was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, they had to have put on a tremendous concert. Just like the Eagles, every song they hit, it's just incredible.
I love it. Yeah, it's great. All right, buddy. We'll talk soon.
I'll let you go now.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. There's the Godfather, Dwight James. Yeah, he's seen Elton John. Yeah, Zeppelin I have not seen. Michael Allen Harrison said that experience up at Kingdome was amazing. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Jason Feldman talking Hairfest coming up at 5. All right, I want to give a big shout out right now. I got a great message from the Captain fans, and a couple of individuals, Teresa and David, who are huge Trailblazer fans, and they're listening. Individuals, Teresa and David, who are huge Trailblazer fans, and they're listening in Indonesia, of all places. The power of the internet. So I'll give a big shout out to both Teresa and David right now who are listening. And the original message I got today from the Captain was, this is so cool to be in a message thread with you. Dave and I are both Blazer fans, but I'm a diehard. We have listened and lived overseas for 12 years, and I listen to every game and Chad Doing's afternoon show, although it's my morning. We recently learned of Maria's connection with you, and I'm immediately asked to connect us. Amazing. So, and he says, on another note, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to you, Chad Doing, and my last name is spelled D-U-I-N. That's a new version of my last name, Chad Doing. Travis Demers and the rest of the team living overseas and listening to them has helped me maintain my connection to the Blazers. Thank you. So big shout out to Teresa and David and the Captain Rich Patterson. Thank you for sharing the message. That's pretty awesome. And that's cool now with the ability to listen. And I think we all do that sometimes, right? With YouTube or with podcasts, the internet, the way you can connect to different areas where maybe you used to live or you have a connection to a certain area. I do the same thing, with different sports teams or areas that I like, from Oklahoma, from Colorado. I've got friends who work in the radio business in the Denver area that I listen to, and I can get my information on the Broncos. And I've got friends who work down in Arizona and get update on the Arizona State Sun Devils, which I enjoy. So I love all that kind of stuff. And this is just another example right there. Coming up next, we're going to be joined by Jason Feldman. He'll join me in studio, and we'll get a chance to talk a little bit of music. The mother of all tribute band festivals is coming up, Hairfest. And Jason usually joins me in studio every music samples to play with Hairfest. I think we got some music samples to play with Hairfest throughout the final hour. I appreciate your time. Big thanks to the Godfather. Great conversation. And as he said, just to recap, that he thinks the deal is already agreed upon and that right now what we're seeing with the council is nothing more than political theater. And as the Godfather pointed out, all politics is theater. He's not wrong. But I think the deal is going to get done and the lease will be signed and we're set. All right, 503-248-0620. Jason Feldman talking Hairfest up next here on the Rip City Drive. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Chad here. It's now 5 o'clock. Checking the Major League scoreboard. Bottom of the third in Miami. Marlins on top of the Mariners by a score of 1-0. George Kirby on the bump for Seattle. They have a half-game lead in the AL West over the Texas Rangers. The Trailblazers will kick off their Summer League action coming up on Friday in Vegas. They'll take on the Suns. Tip-off is at 8. It's going to be on ESPNU. The NCAA has sent a letter of inquiry to the University of Cincinnati for the time that Brendan Sorsby was quarterback at the school. Justin Bieber joining the World Cup final halftime show. We got more of the Rip City Drive coming at you right now. Jason Feldman talking Hairfest. He'll join me in studio. All right, Hairfest, which is the mother of all tribute festivals, is coming up July 16th through the 18th. It's at the Clackamas County Fairgrounds in Canby, Oregon. You can check it out online. Just go to hairfest.com. And joining me right now is my good friend Jason Feldman, who's in studio, and you survived the traffic around town just to get here on time. I love it.
I made it, baby. I made it. Whew. Close call.
Nice hoodie you got on. Nice hat. I like the logo. Looking sharp, brother.
Our merch game is strong. Love the Led Zeppelin lead in. That's a good reminder that we finally, after I think a decade, have a Led Zeppelin tribute back at Hairfest. Our band Ramble On, who has reconstituted, but with the same lead singer. Yeah, so those guys are amazing. So, yeah, very apropos there.
Well, we were talking to the Godfather, and we were talking about concerts or bands or artists that you have not seen that you wish you could have gone to. He came up with two, Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin. I have not seen either. And it's nice with a tribute festival like Hairfest where you can go and hear those songs that you love so much perform live.
Totally. You know, I had a humorous exchange, as I do on a regular basis, with folks online who made the comment, "Oh, I only see the real bands." And I'm thinking, okay, well, let me know next time Beastie Boys, Queen, Led Zeppelin, Fleetwood Mac come to town. Of course, they won't, because the only way you can see this music played is through a tribute band now. So, yeah, man, it's really cool to be able. It's like a big, live jukebox.
Well, Jason, don't you think that's the key? I was thinking about this literally a couple of days ago when I was thinking about your visit coming in studio. Like all these bands that I've spent years going to go see live. Like I enjoy the music. Rock and roll is now dead, right? So when these bands are finally done, and a majority of them are, and they're no longer touring or available to see in concert, the only connection we're going to have to the songs, which is what matters the most, the music that will carry on, is going to be through tribute bands. That's it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, there's a sort of a feeling attached to it too. It's interesting at sort of our early advanced stage. How you feel when you hear a song, and it goes to a whole nother level when you get to see a band do it live. And you're sitting there with a huge stage and everything, and these guys are all in costume and they look and sound like the original. And so, I mean, like the Godfather, I would have loved to have seen Led Zeppelin. That's probably number one on my list, right? But I ain't never gonna see Led Zeppelin, so Ramble On is the next best thing.
Have you seen Pink Floyd live?
I have not seen Pink Floyd. We've had a Pink Floyd tribute before, Pigs on the Wing at Hairfest. We don't this year, but I'm sure we'll have them back.
So what else would be on your list of bands that you have not been able to see live that you wish you could have seen?
I think Queen is probably a big one for me.
I've heard they were phenomenal live.
Yeah, and so that we're excited because we've got Queen Nation, who's literally the number one drawing Queen tribute in the country. But I think Queen. I've never seen the Eagles either. So, I was listening to Godfrey. I'm like, wow, man, this guy's got my same music taste.
Yeah, that's my favorite of all the bands I've seen. I think they have put on the best live show.
Yep.
And I've seen them multiple times. I guess what I was amazed by when I first started going to concerts, they were one of the first shows I saw when they were on their Hell Freezes Over tour. I saw them up initially in Tacoma at the Tacoma Dome. I just couldn't believe how good they sounded live. Like the ability to take the songs and understand the importance of people hearing the songs as they remember them on the album and being able to recreate those in a live venue, I thought was pretty impressive.
There's also something I think that a lot of people kind of lose track of over the years, which is, first of all, there's plenty of fantastic modern music, right? It's not necessarily in our purview. It doesn't, maybe people don't hear on the radio, they discover it the same way. But by the same token, what's interesting about these eras of the 70s and the 80s into maybe and into the 90s is that this was sort of pre-heavy electronics. And so these musicians, were playing all this stuff live, in the studio or tracking it live in the studio. And so that's, part of the reason why the live show is so compelling is because they have to be able to do it. And, some of that with the more modern music, I go to see bands. And, of course, I love the Backstreet Boys, a great example, right? No shade on those guys, but they're just dancing. The whole thing is just playing. There's no band or anything. So, I think getting to see actual, really professionally trained musicians playing this music the way it was originally recorded and intended there's something kind of, visceral about that.
Yeah, that was my first experience. I think it was like 2008, 2009, somewhere in that area. I went up to Tacoma Dome. Pussycat Dolls and Britney Spears were performing, right?
Totally.
And I went to the show, and what I realized is that it was all piped in sound.
Yeah, there's no band. Yeah.
That blew me away.
Yeah.
I was like, where's the band?
Yeah.
And not that I'm hating on the show. Britney,
just different.
It's just different, right?
Yeah.
I like to see people performing live, and I guess because I'm so, whether it's the keyboards or it could be the piano or it's the guitar or it's someone playing the drums, I just like seeing those professionals performing their craft in front of a crowd.
Absolutely. And, one of the fun things, too, is that, bands have an opportunity to draw from, like, some of the bands are like, hey, we're going to play this song like maybe the way a little bit like Led Zeppelin did, in this section while they did it live. So sometimes there's some little surprises that, the tribute bands will throw in that the original bands did back in the day.
That's pretty awesome. Jason Feldman is in. We're talking about Hairfest, which is coming up July 16th. Through the 18th, Clackamas County Fairgrounds in Canby, Oregon. It looks like, I looked at the extended forecast, it looks like the weather's going to be spectacular.
Knock on wood, man, it looks great this year.
Yes,
we
does.
always plan for contingencies. We have all the cooling stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like the shade in the...
Because it gets hot, too.
It can get hot. And so, our people's favorite thing are usually the misting tents.
Yeah.
But right now it's looking really moderate, so we're pretty stoked about that.
That's pretty sweet. So when you buy tickets for Hairfest, does it include all the bands? Like, what's the best way to go and take in the bands? Because there's so many performers.
Yeah, one of the things we've learned over the years with 24 bands, and the length of the festival is unusually long, right? So Thursday night, which is the shortest night, goes from 7 to midnight, basically, right? That's the
a long
short night.
Yeah.
Friday picks up at 11 a.m. and goes till 1 a.m. with very, like 20, 30 minutes in between bands, tops, right? Saturday is even longer. It starts at 9:15, the music in the morning, and it's packed in the morning, right? Because we have over 3,000 people that spend the night, so they just roll on over. We're doing the Yacht Rock Brunch this year. Actually, my own band, so I play drums in Red Light Romeo, so we're doing a Yacht Rock Brunch, to kick things off, and that jives with the RV and the overnight crowd, and that goes again till 1 a.m., so it's a lot of music. So to answer your question, some people will buy the full 3-day pass, but there's a lot of a la carte. You can either buy a single day, and we even, because it's so long, people can even buy an after 5 p.m. ticket for Friday and Saturday, and that still gets you from 5 to 1 a.m. It's still a long concert.
That's plenty of music.
So you really have a lot of choices. You can do the whole full Monty, or you can just take it in chunks. You got a little something for everybody. Yeah,
I like that. You mentioned something a while ago. How are youngsters or people today discovering new music? Is it online? Because the radio, like you and I grew up in a time where we discovered new music by listening to the radio.
Sure.
Or seeing something on MTV, but now it's totally different. So are people discovering things online, or is it through different streaming services? What is the main way people do it?
My perception is this largely algorithmic, right? So, things show up in your feed based on what you consume, or if you like this, you like that. So, primarily streaming. And I think that the social aspect of music is still alive and well, so people still share that with one another. The interesting thing about the Hairfest demographic, we call it the donut demographic because there's basically a hole in the middle. So you've got the people who listened to it originally, and then you've got their kids who are now in their 20s and in some cases in their 30s, right?
Yeah.
So like our largest growth demographic last year at Hairfest was literally 21 to 29, which was a little surprising, but it makes sense because when I was a kid, I was listening to this music driving around with my parents. And so, and we do produce a 90s event up in Moses Lake called the 90s Flannel Fest. It's the same kind of event, but for 90s. And it's the same thing where you've got just everybody's 10 years younger. So instead of the kids being 30, they're 20. So it's pretty interesting to see how that picks up.
That is pretty awesome. But you're right. For me, not just the radio, but you're right. I listened to what my parents would listen to. So I was influenced heavily by their musical tastes.
Absolutely. Yeah, heavily.
Yeah, Yacht Rock is one of my favorites. The interesting part about me, and maybe you're the same way, I love Yacht Rock, and I love a lot of the artists that collaborated to create that music back in the day, late 70s and early 80s. But I also love Pink Floyd. I love Led Zeppelin. I love Metallica. Like, I have a wide-ranging taste of music that seems to get wider as I get older. Do you notice the same thing with yourself?
For sure. And, again, I'm so steeped in tribute bands because of the business that I'm in. So a lot of the times I will discover a band when I see the tribute band play it live. And I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know I liked this band. A couple examples of that would be one of them is Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
I just wasn't that hot on the Beastie Boys. And then I saw the 8-piece Grand Royale do it with all the antics and everything. And I was like, wow, there's a lot going on in here. And so that was one of those bands. And actually Metallica was one of those bands too. Another one of those bands for me, surprisingly, was ABBA. Like I thought, oh, ABBA, that's old people music, right?
Yeah.
But I really started listening to that. It's actually super, it's got a lot of sort of progressive musical elements. The people who played that, and if you get on YouTube and look at live videos of ABBA doing their show back in the day, those were some serious musical cats playing that stuff. So it is, that's for me, that's where a lot of my discovery is still backwards. I've also just as a person sort of accepted defeat and getting older. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm okay if I don't, keep up with what the kids are doing. I'm like, I'm happy to live in my past, and this is what I love to do, and that's cool.
Yeah, the past is cool. My aunt, Bonita, listened to ABBA a lot, and so that's why I picked up on that music originally. But you're right. As I've gotten older, what I love to do is, and I get lost in YouTube mode all the time, and you're right, the algorithm will continue to feed me music that I listen to frequently on the platform. But I love to go into like Wikipedia, or if I have the actual album, I'll pull it out. I like to go through and look at the personnel.
Yep.
And then what I'm finding is that all the music that I love, or the songs that I really appreciate, it's amazing the crossover and how many different artists that I know and respect either were primary players on the album. Maybe it was someone that played a guitar part or someone that sang backup vocals, but you get all these people blended together, and these are all artists that I love, and I'm like, no wonder I like a lot of the same music.
You can
from
draw
that era.
If you were to do like a Venn diagram of sort of classic rock, all roads lead to Toto.
Yes.
Right? Those guys played on everything from the era, right? And as a musician, it's also fun. I'm working on a new tribute band. It's a Bryan Adams tribute. I'm going to be playing drums. It'll debut sometime later in the year, right?
That's going to be awesome.
But what's interesting about it is I was listening to the song Heaven, right? And I was listening to I'm playing drums in the band. I'm like, wow, man, this all feels really familiar. I did exactly what you said. I'm like, get up on, who played drums on this song, right? Turns out it was Steve Smith, the drummer for Journey. Well, I used to play in a Journey tribute band, right? So I'm like, this is like, I literally feel like I'm playing faithfully, even though it's Bryan Adams. The other thing that's interesting is that the producers cross over. So like a guy like Mutt Lange, right? Like if you listen to Def Leppard is the quintessential Mutt Lange produced band.
Yes.
And then, you start to like branch out from that. Again, if you listen to some of the Bryan Adams or like Shania Twain, right? The reason why country music changed so much, I used to joke that, 90s country is like 80s pop rock, right? That's because Mutt Lange basically went from Def Leppard to Shania Twain. She made it really big, and everybody started copying that. So it's 90s, pop country really is 80s rock.
All right, so let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. I love this kind of stuff. So I was listening to some Chicago the other day, and I go through phases where I'll come across a song, and I'm like, I need to dive a little bit deeper into that. So Chicago, I hadn't listened to them in a while, so I started listening to some of their music and, just continually blown away by some of their songs from the 70s and then into the 80s. But they had gone through kind of a rough patch after great success in the 70s where they were kind of looking for a revival. And that's where they brought in David Foster, who was close with Peter Cetera. So Chicago 17 was their biggest hit album of all time. And so I just pulled it up and started looking at additional personnel. And this is the part that fascinates me. They got the original band with Champlin and Cetera and Lamb and those guys. But you look at the additional personnel. David Foster, who is one of the greatest producers of all time. He's legendary. Keyboards, synthesizer programming, additional arrangements, and then it lists out all the songs that he worked on, horn arrangements, and so on. And then you look down the line, you're like, okay, Paul Jackson Jr. on guitars, I know him. Michael Lando on guitars. Jeff Porcaro from Toto on drums, one of the best session drummers of all time. Carlos Vega on drums. He was big back in the day.
Huge.
Richard Marx providing backup vocals.
Oh, yeah.
Donny Osmond on backup vocals.
Yeah.
And David Pack from Toto. And then also did work with Ambrosia doing some backup vocals. But I look at that and I'm like, those are all guys that I love.
Totally. I mean, it's amazing, the connective tissue there. Richard Marx also, I think you probably saw this floating around online. He was the guy in Lionel Richie's All Night Long who sang the backup all night. Like he was that back, and you can't unhear it now. It's fascinating. And there are guys like that and gals who are like, you don't realize how much, there are people who are like famous without being famous. They're just cashing their checks for songwriting and stuff. And I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Or as I heard someone put it once, mailbox money.
Mailbox money.
Mailbox money, which I think is great. Well, one Marx story, and by the way, with Marx, he's doing a lot of social media lately.
I noticed.
So he's telling a lot of stories.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. But this story is great. So before when he got his start, he was doing he was brought in to do some backup singing for Kenny Rogers in the studio, right? And he was working on some material, writing songs. And so he did the one thing that he said you're not supposed to do as a backup singer. He actually approached Kenny and was like, dude, I got an idea. And of course, he said, looking back on it, it's a crazy thing to do because he could have been like, bleep off and get out of here, right? But Kenny didn't do that. And he showed him what he had. And before you know it, Kenny's like, I like this. And then he wrote that song for Kenny. It went on to be a #1 hit. And it's
just amazing.
Isn't that great, though?
Yeah, I love that stuff.
But with tribute bands, how does it work? Because I think a lot of people wonder this. You decide you want to be in a tribute band. How long does it take as you go over the songs that you're familiar with and the ones that you're not to learn how to play them and be able to? Because if you're going to be a tribute band, it would seem to me that you got to sound legit, right?
Yeah.
Or people are just immediately going to discard you, right? You got to sound legit. So how long does that process take?
It really depends on the band. I mean, bands, you can put them together and learn the songs in a few months. I mean, it doesn't take that long with professional musicians to actually learn songs. I would say a couple things about this. One, it generally, even though the rest of the band doesn't like to hear this, it really revolves around the singer.
Yeah.
If your singer doesn't sound, and in many cases look like the original, it doesn't matter what else you've got.
That's
right?
a good point.
That's the deal. And I've also seen amazing singers succeed with very average backing bands because of it. That said, the second thing is the tones, right? So, guitarists, keyboard player, everybody's got sounds that they, based on what they own and what they're used to. And so it's a lot easier to get the sounds because, so many of these things are like, I mean, if I load up my little amp modeler, it's like, oh, here's the Rush sound, here's the Police sound. So you can get a lot of that stuff pre-programmed now. But I do think that, having a sounds, because people are expecting you to sound like the album. The interesting thing is when you go see the real band live, they don't worry about whether they have the tones from the album, and nobody's judging them on that, right? And if they tune it down, if they play a different version, do a different tempo, do the whole thing Latin style, they're like, oh, that was cool, right? If they go see a tribute band, you're being evaluated strictly against the album. And so having those sounds is it's an investment, you know what I mean? Because it's not a matter of the skill it takes to learn it. You have to buy it. You know what I mean? So I think that's a big part of the dynamic. But outside of that, once you learn the songs, in my estimation, you probably need about 18 months to 2 years to really coalesce, and even the best tribute bands, they don't come out fully baked. You just need to play and get your reps in.
So it's like anything else, with time and with energy and the effort and the reps, it starts to really come together.
The reps really matter, and they only really start to matter after you get everything else dialed. So, I've seen bands come together really quickly, but seldom does a band really hit their stride for at least a couple years.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And when you first start out, you don't have music sheets up there, do you? You're playing off of ear, or how does that work?
It depends on the musician, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm playing in a band right now where the guitar player transposed or transcribed all the solos. So I'm like, how is this guy playing all this stuff, right? Well, it just turns out he's trained at music school. And I'm looking around the room, and 4 out of 5 of us have musical educations, right?
Yeah.
When I learn songs, for example, I listen a ton, but I also chart them out. So I think at the level of the tribute bands that you see at a place like Hairfest, I think there's a pretty high percentage of trained musicians where there's some level of technicality or training that's being applied to learn that's more than just listening. So a surprising number of, professional musicians are doing this, especially now, because it's one of the, few ways you can make money performing anymore.
See, that's part of what makes Hairfest such a great time is because the bands that are there have been working for a long period of time to sound great.
For sure. And, the funny thing is, I keep thinking about a Steve Perry interview that I heard a while back. Part of the reason why Steve Perry stopped singing with Journey was simply because, humans aren't meant to sing that stuff, for 300 nights a year,
No,
right?
not possible.
But the story he was telling was great. He was talking about how back in the day, there was this unspoken competition, right in the meat of the 80s, where all of the singers, all these high tenors, whether it was John Bon Jovi or, Steven Tyler, all these, or Loverboy, they were all trying to outdo each other on their albums. And no one was thinking about what it would take to actually go out on the road to do it, right? It's just to pull some of this stuff off is really hard because it wasn't actually really meant to be done live, especially in the 80s. The 70s stuff, a little more, it's like there wasn't as much electronics and stuff to do it. It was pretty much we had to be able to play it. But once we got to the 80s, especially in the studios, these guys did things that were never meant to be done live.
I agree. That's pretty awesome. All right, Jason Feldman in studio. We're talking Hairfest, which is coming up July 16th through the 18th at the Clackamas County Fairgrounds in Canby. You can check out, just go online right now at hairfest.com. And is that the best place to get tickets? Is it
Yeah,
hairfest.com?
that's all the info. I always want to emphasize it's H-A-R-E. People say, you misspelled it. It's spelled H-A-I-R. And we'll know it's a play on words. We started at the Wild Hair Saloon in Canby.
All right, telephone number. If you got any questions, you want to talk music with us, you can, 503-248-0620. We'll keep things rolling. Talk a lot more music and enjoy our time with Jason Feldman here on the Rip City Drive.
Led Zeppelin, possibly the hottest concert tour this summer, will come only as close as Seattle's Kingdome. Just listen to win your way in. 97 KYTE.
All right, one of the bands that's going to be at Hairfest will be Eagle Eyes. It's coming up July 16th through the 18th at Clackamas County Fairgrounds in Canby. Go to Hairfest, H-A-R-E fest.com, and no, they did not misspell it. Hairfest.com, and you can get all the information you need. The mother of all tribute festivals. Jason Feldman is in studio with me right now. All right, have you seen the documentary? It's the greatest musical documentary I've ever seen, The Greatest Night in Pop.
The Making of We Are the World.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, the layers of that, I highly recommend that to anybody who hasn't seen it, who sort of loves the music of our, Gen Xers and around there. It was incredible to
now
see
that it's come up, I may have to watch it again tonight. I've seen it multiple times. And you brought up a very interesting point. Like, we know that Lionel Richie is great, but that video kind of highlights his significance, right? He was the one that sat down with Michael Jackson to put the song together, which is amazing to me.
The thing I love about that documentary is they are able to highlight the genius of a lot of different characters in that story, right? Michael Jackson's, fastidious songwriting and attention to detail. Lionel Richie's ability to pull everybody together. Stevie Wonder showing Bob Dylan how to sing like Bob Dylan. That had to have been the craziest moment in the entire thing.
That was, I think, one of my favorites, because you were talking about next level artists who can do everything. Stevie Wonder is about as talented as you can get in the music biz, but him singing like Bob Dylan, to show Bob Dylan how he needs to sing like himself in that song, it blew me away.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I mean, the fact that he went from being sort of, paralyzed with sort of, anxiety about doing the recording, Bob Dylan, to, Stevie Wonder sitting down with him and making him feel comfortable, and also literally to sit there and, your ears are hearing Stevie Wonder sing like Bob Dylan, and you're going, is there anything this guy can't do?
It's so amazing to me. The other thing I love, too, was like the stagehand who was like going around before everyone arrived, because they were at the Grammys fixing the lights and stuff, and he said he heard a voice that sounded like an angel. And it was Michael Jackson working on his parts and singing by himself with no one else around, just him and Quincy.
Yeah.
And he said it sounded like an angel. I was like, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall to hear that.
When I was at music school at PIT in LA, there was a vocal coach, one of Michael Jackson. I wish I could remember their name, but anyway, they played a cassette at the time of her vocalizing Michael Jackson, so basically, him warming up. And it was crazy because, first of all, his voice goes way lower, went way lower than you would ever think. He started super low and then just went up into the stratosphere. So it's, the other thing is his speaking voice was kind of different than it was in public.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, the behind the scenes skill level of some of those artists is just mind blowing.
Yeah, that was an all-time documentary. I love Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder showing each other where the bathroom was at.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Don't worry, Stevie, I'll show you.
So good.
Or how about going over to Michael's house and his snake comes out of the...
Yeah, all the animals.
Yeah, the animals, and the snake comes out and he's like, oh, Lionel, he heard us singing. He wants to say hi to you.
Yeah. Well, and Lionel not realizing until he goes over there that Michael Jackson doesn't play any instruments.
Yeah.
He's like, what? He couldn't believe it after all that time. He's like, wait, you don't play anything? He's like, no, I just sing it, and then somebody plays it. And so that's how they kind of learned how to write together.
Gosh, that's so awesome, man. I love that. And, I what's cool is I've heard other artists talk about this. And recently I listened to an interview with Smokey Robinson. Like, he's flattered anytime a tribute band or someone wants to cover one of his songs. Like, he's flattered by someone that wants to do that. And he's like, oh, yeah, I encourage people to do that. I think that's really cool.
We've, occasionally get to interface with the real artists, the real bands, and it's pretty rare that you find an original artist that is down on tribute bands. I mean, Dee Snider is famously against them, and John Bon Jovi has sued Blonde Jovi, on the East Coast. But by and large, anytime I, run into somebody like that, and we talked to some of the guys from Journey at one point when we were in our Journey tribute band, they're like, yeah, man, I mean, think about the alternative. If no one wants to play your music, what does that say about where your band is?
Exactly.
You know, so it's like if people are pining for it, and they're also like realize like tribute bands don't compete with the real bands.
They don't.
You know, we have like, for example, like Foo Fighters, right? Well, we have a Foo Fighters tribute, right? No one is gonna like forego seeing the real Foo Fighters and just go see the tribute band. But how many chances do you get to see the Foo Fighters? And if you can, what's it going to cost? And can you get tickets? And are you going to see them in the same lineup with the Beastie Boys and ABBA and Bon Jovi and, you know, Fleetwood Mac? And so it's kind of cool to kind of, you know, see how this sort of keeps a legacy alive for a lot of these bands.
Yeah, because the real key with a great band, it's not the individuals, it's the music, right? It's the connection that people have to the music that's going to live on forever. And so I would think that if you have a tribute band that's playing a band's songs and people are still connecting to the music, it helps that band's music live on forever.
There's also an unspoken energy that comes off the stage with the tribute band that might not be obvious, but it sort of, you know, unconsciously comes through, which is that when people are playing these tribute bands, a lot of the time, these are bands that they absolutely love. They're like absolute favorite band growing up.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're not going to be in a tribute band of a group of artists that you don't enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you will find like some of the band members who it's a gig, but certainly the singers. There's no singer of a tribute band out there who's, you know, really kicking butt that like hates the band. You know what I mean? And so there's a certain joy coming off the stage, you know, for celebrating that music, and also a little bit of disbelief. I mean, I can tell you from my own experience playing these gigs over the years that you're sitting there playing this stuff, and there's 10,000 people out there, and you can't believe it's even happening, because you kind of, I mean, I know people make fun of us for this, but you kind of dreamed of doing this when you were a kid.
Yeah.
And there's only so many people can make it. This is the closest that most of us are ever going to get to being, you know, famous and in those bands, and it's super fun.
But don't you get a charge like when you step out on the stage at Hairfest and you got all those people out there? Don't you get like an adrenaline push from seeing that?
Yeah, and the best part is everybody's singing along, and you can see the joy on their faces, and there's a communal nature to it. I mean, the other thing too that's interesting about, you know, a festival like Hairfest is that now, because it's been around for 14 years, there's a community that's developed around the festival. So, you know, we sort of joke that it's a summer camp for adults, but, you know, you go into the overnight area and people are hanging out. It's like, I see this person once a year at Hairfest. So it feels like almost like a rock and roll reunion of sorts. And, you know, and people remember. And in many cases now they're bringing their adult children. And so getting to sort of share like, hey, this is what we used to do back in our day kind of thing. And so that's kind of cool to see that too.
The first tribute band that I saw was at Jimmy Mac's, and it was a Hall & Oates tribute band. And again, I'm a huge Hall & Oates fan, so I went in with a critical eye like, I'm not going to like this. This is fraudulent. And I loved it. And I was like, they sound great. And so what I've done now is I've gotten older, and I make an effort to seek out different cover bands who are playing the songs that I love, because I want to see their take on it. How do they sound? What's their spin on it? And I'm impressed by it. I enjoy listening to it.
Interesting Hall & Oates connection. So it turns out, so I mentioned I'm you know, playing drums in a Bryan Adams tribute that's coming together, and so as I start looking into the drummers, the sort of the core drummer was Mickey Curry. Well, Mickey Curry was also the main guy for Hall & Oates for many years, as it turns out. Which is funny because I also play in a tribute band called Hall & Bros. It does Hall & Oates and Doobie Brothers. So I'm like, oh, well, this is why this all feels similar.
That's so awesome.
So it's a fascinating connection there.
That's great. So at Hairfest this year, you were talking about the wide variety of bands, and that's what I love about it. It's not like a metal fest. Like there's a mixture of everything, which is nice. And all the bands. So Queen Nation, obviously, which is a tribute band for Queen. Taken by the Sky, which is a Fleetwood Mac tribute band. Ramble On, Led Zeppelin. Hysteria, which is Def Leppard. Eagle Eyes, which is an Eagles tribute band. Dr. Crew, Motley Crue. Petty Fever for Tom Petty. Anthem, which is Rush. Shoot to Thrill, AC/DC. Band After Midnight for ABBA. Wild Boys, Duran Duran. Fighting Foo Fighters. Judas Rising, Northwest. That's Judas Priest, of course. Barracuda for Heart. Jar of Lies, Alice in Chains. Good Times Roll, The Cars. Bad Medicine, Bon Jovi. Miller Time for Steve Miller Band. Innocent Men. Billy Joel, Grand Royale, Beastie Boys. Fear of the Dark, Iron Maiden. Third Stage, which is Boston. Rock Shop, 80s Hair. And the Red Light Romeos, which is Yacht Rock. That's a great mixture.
A little something for everybody. And the way we do the programming is that, you know, a lot of the times it will alternate from like maybe a heavier band to a softer band. You know, one of the things we sort of recognize and acknowledge is that I mean, it takes a special kind of festival goer to park it there and rock out for that many hours. I mean, it's like 27 hours of music. You can't do it, right?
Yeah.
And so you need a break. And so the nice thing is, a lot of the times you can kind of get away for like, well, I'm more of an Iron Maiden guy, but I'm not so into Billy Joel, so I'm gonna maybe take that one off, and then or vice versa, right? And so it's kind of nice to have some variety, so that people can just get breaks and go enjoy one of the other activities.
How many years now have you been doing Hairfest?
So this is the 14th year. We started 16 years ago, but we had 2 years off of COVID. So yeah, it's 14, and of course we're like kind of rounding the corner, looking at next year as the big 15-year anniversary. But yeah, it's hard to believe, but that is our 14th year.
That is amazing, man. That's awesome. It's coming up July 16th through the 18th. You can go to Hairfest, HAREFest.com to get all the information and tickets right now. We'll come back and finish out the hour with Jason Fellman talking Hairfest here on the Rip City Drive. If you got any thoughts or want to talk music, 503-2480. All right, check out hairfest.com, H-A-R-E, fest.com to get all your information on Hairfest. The mother of all tribute festivals coming up July 16th through the 18th at Clackamas County Fairgrounds. Now, what was music school like as you went through? Like, what are some of the different things that you learned through music school?
Well, first of all, it was awesome. I went to Musicians Institute, and a lot of people actually.
Where's that at?
It's in Hollywood, California. Like,
course it
I
is.
literally lived a block off. I lived by the Mann's Chinese Theater at the time. It was right.
Amazing.
So I right there I was there during the riots. It was an interesting time.
Back in, that would have been what, 90?
91, 92 was the year I was there. And the thing I loved about music school more than anything was the opportunity to be around all these other musicians who you could constantly play and perform with. I mean, the energy around that was amazing. I also, my drum teacher, right, for playing technique was Joe Porcaro, right? Jeff Porcaro's dad. In fact, I was in his class.
Are you kidding me?
No, I was in his class when he passed
He's a
away.
legend.
No, so I remember like one day we go into class, like Joe's not coming today. Jeff died. And we're just like, holy cow. Like, it was crazy, the whole thing. Because you can imagine, like, Jeff Porcaro was like the idol of all drummers at the school. You know what I mean? Like, we all wanted to play like that. But Tim Bogert from Vanilla Fudge, the bass player, was my vocal teacher. And so on and so forth. And so it was really cool. So, and the other thing that was cool is getting to play a lot of different styles, having a Latin class, a jazz class, ensemble. Because I was, primarily a rock guy. So as somebody who basically wanted to be Neil Peart when I growed up, like I didn't really think about the fact that, very few people can make money playing that style of music, progressive rock like that. You know what I mean? So it was a real eye opener. Like, oh, if I can just play a basic beat in time and get along with other musicians, that's how I'm going to work.
Yeah.
And so, I think learning those lessons from real pros was incalculable. And just being in a place in my life where I can just practice 24/7. I wasn't 21, so I couldn't go out with everybody. So I would just, in the middle of the night, just go to school in my little, drum room and play.
That's great. And I think Porcaro, I've heard him talk about this before, where it's all about the basics, right? His time was perfect.
Yeah. Everything about that guy was, that's something you can't, his level of awesome is, you can't learn that. You just have it. But yeah,
he was born with that.
He was born with that. And his whole family, right? We talked about it earlier. It's like just all the Porcaros were just,
Mike,
amazing.
Steve, Jeff, all of them.
Yep.
You mentioned that my buddy, Steve, my best friend, he lives in Vegas, but he grew up in California. Toto's his favorite band of all time. But when Jeff passed away, shockingly, he went to the tribute concert. They had this big tribute concert for Porcaro out in Temecula, California. He went to the show, and the full show's on YouTube, so you can listen to it. But like all the big names performed at that show. It's pretty remarkable.
Remarkable, yeah. His legacy, to this day is just. He's on. You can listen to, you throw a rock at a song, and he's on it.
He's on it. Yeah, he's on everything. Yeah. But did you find great value in the music school?
Yeah, I did. I absolutely, if I could do it again, 100 times out of 100, do it again. I would recommend it to anybody. And I think that this is what I've learned about school over the years, because I've dropped out of college multiple times, right? And I'm reasonably successful in business. But the thing that I've valued about the time I spent in school, I did graduate with the vocational education in music, but university, is that it's the process. You know what I mean? And the networking and the fact that you're exposed to so many opportunities. It's not so much that you study something and that's what you do when you get out.
Yeah.
It's that it leads you down a path that you don't know until you get there. And so I'm a big fan of getting some kind of education for that reason.
Yeah, that process. I made good connections in college. My education, I think, in a lot of ways was useless, but the connections and that process I went through was really good. And then what I found to be the most valuable in this field in radio was just hanging out in studios with people that know what they're doing, and you watch and learn, and you pick up all the different skills and how things are done.
The first thing they told us when we walked into the room at school, when they did their orientation, they said, hey, get to know your peers, but those aren't ultimately the people you're going to network with when it comes to, getting the most out of it. It's like, if you're a drummer, you should be networking with bass players, guitar players, basically everybody but drummers, because when the good opportunities come along, the drummer is going to take it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I thought, well, that's pretty important lesson, which is, obviously get to know your peers, but get to know your collaborators in the industry. That's important.
Yeah, because if you hear, any of the stories in rock, like when Michael McDonald got the opportunity to join Doobie Brothers, right? It was because he knew somebody who knew someone that was with the band, and he was recommended.
Yeah,
and then
amazing.
You take advantage of the opportunity, but there's a lot of people with that pathway, right?
Crazy to think that they didn't all want him. They weren't all happy about that.
Yeah,
I know in the rearview mirror they are.
They are now, but
that was a tough
in
pill.
the time when someone comes in and brings a different spin, and changes the style of music. It's like, it's crazy to think that at the time when they were having that tremendous success that they weren't happy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But,
crazy.
but musicians are like that. It's like they start out a certain way and then it changes a bit and they resist it, right? Because it's like, well, we're not a rock and roll band now.
I mean, I think about Joe Walsh and the Eagles too. So, it's like, how many times is a band like awesome and then they add another player and they go to a whole nother level? I mean, it happens, but it's, probably more the exception than the norm.
I agree. Yeah. So very interesting. But yeah, music school. The reason why I love music so much is because I don't have musical talent. So when I see people like you and others who are able to, have you written any of your own music?
I actually have an album. In fact, I licensed one song that paid for the whole album.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
How much did you enjoy that process?
I hated it, and I don't like writing music. It turns out, and I'm not very good at it. And I really don't like recording in the studio. But what this whole process taught me in going through that was that I'm like, you know what? I like playing live. I'm a performer. It's sort of like in poker, right? You have people who are good at tournaments, and you have people who are good at cash games, but you're usually not good at both. Music is similar. You have people who are really good in the studio, really good live. A lot of the time, they're not the same person. Some are, right?
Yeah, some are really good at writing music and recording it, but performing live is not their strong suit.
That's why some of the most famous songwriters and collaborators are unknown. You know what I mean? I mean, the average household, they've never heard of David Foster, but his music.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. His fingerprints are everywhere, right?
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So what was it you hated about, writing your own music?
Well, for starters, I'm not very good at it, right?
But how do you know that?
Because I know enough to listen to the output and be intellectually honest about it, right?
Oh, so you put it together, you listen to it, you're like, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know what to do to make it right, or I just don't have the discipline to do it. And the thing about recording is that I'm like a really twitchy person. You can probably see that just by looking at me. And I am an energy guy, but I make mistakes. You know what I mean? Like I drop drumsticks still, right? And I know that about myself, and something about the pressure that mounts through the take.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sitting here playing drums, right? I'm 50, I'm 90% of the way through. Don't mess up.
Yeah.
And you know what? I mean, I can admit it. I'm not wired that way.
That's funny.
But you don't feel that pressure live.
I do that when I'm going through a commercial and trying to put together a spot. And sometimes I just don't have it, and it takes me like 20 or 25 takes to get it right, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And I'll think the same thing. Don't screw this up, and I'll mispronounce a word or I'll slur something, and I got to redo it.
And great stuff will happen when you're just riffing, right, with no plan, and it's all ad-libbed, right? I mean, it's like, wait, so probably, I'm guessing that some of your best work comes when you're just,
No, it does. In fact, I interviewed Steve Lukather, and he worked with Lionel Richie on Running with the Night.
Yep.
He goes in the studio. He just starts warming up and riffing on the guitar. Yeah. Lionel comes in and goes, we're good. He goes, what do you mean? I haven't even started playing. He goes, no, what you just did, we're going to use on the album.
So for those who don't know, Steve, another guy from Toto, right?
Yeah.
Who's like, his imprint is all over Thriller and many of the other greatest albums ever.
I just like, he just riffed and came up with a great cut. That's wild to me.
Something that flows through him.
Well, that sucks. The time is up. And Jason Feldman, that went by quick, man.
Always fun talking music, man.
All right, go to the website, hairfest.com, July 16th through the 18th at Clackamas County Fairgrounds in Canby, Hairfest, HAREfest.com. You can buy tickets there, get all the information. Anything else you want to add before you go?
You know what? I just want to, for the first time ever, this is kind of a big deal. We actually have showers in our camping area.
Woo!
So that's actually a big deal. So I'm like, our RV sold out a long time ago, but we still have tents available. So I had to bring that up. We have showers.
Shake your ass in the sun, have a good time, and you can shower.
Can you shower? Yeah.
That's great. All right. Big thanks to Jason Feldman. I appreciate you, buddy.
I appreciate it.
All right. You guys have a good night.